don't have to do it, but your bookkeeper has to explain to you in plain English how well your accounts are reconciled. The only two accounts that matter, your bank accounts and your credit card accounts. You want to make sure that your bookkeeper has it in your contract that they're going to reconcile those every single month and mark this down to the penny. That's your cash. That's the key into your bank account. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Cash Flow Podcast, where we're going to talk about everything related to the money in your small business. I'm your host, Pam, and without further ado, we're going to jump right into our episode. Hey there, this is Pam coming at you live from FinCon in New Orleans. We are having a blast down here in New Orleans, one of my very favorite cities. And we have another episode of 3 Things to Do If for every entrepreneur. So, what is today's question? Today, we're going to answer 3 things to do if your cash flow in your business isn't reflecting what you think your profit is. And you would be amazed how common this question is across entrepreneurs. It happens to all of us. There are some very good reasons that it happens. And as a business owner, I'd say it's really critical that you understand these 3 things I'm going to tell you. You don't need to understand bookkeeping and accounting to get your head around this, but it's really important that you understand why sometimes when you are profitable, your bank account doesn't tell you that you're profitable. So let's dive in. 3 things. What is the first one? The first one is you need to understand your balance sheet. Now, don't let that be scary. I don't mean, like I said, that I need you to be a bookkeeper. What I actually need for you to do is understand the 2 things that are most important on that balance sheet and what to make sure your bookkeeper is doing with those on a monthly basis. Because the first thing we need to rule out, if your cash account is not showing you what you think your profit is, we need to rule out that there's something wrong, right? That there's money leaking from your business. And the way to make sure there's no money leaking from your business, either through neglect or fraud on the part of people, and both happen, the only way to make sure that's the truth is to make sure that you've got your balance sheet reconciled. You don't have to do it, but your bookkeeper has to explain to you in plain English how well your accounts are reconciled. The only 2 accounts that matter, your bank accounts and your credit card accounts. You want to make sure that your bookkeeper has it in your contract that they're going to reconcile those every single month and mark this down to the penny. That's your cash. That's the key into your bank account. And if nobody is looking at that on a monthly basis to make sure that what the bank says you have is what the reports you're looking at say you have, then you've got a significant problem. And it's a whole different kind of problem than the other 2 items I'm going to share with you address. So let's seal that door. So how, you're asking, Pam, I don't know what a reconciliation is. How do I make sure that the account's reconciled? Here's what you do. Every now and then, surprise your bookkeeper and say, I want you to send me a copy of the bank statement for a particular month, and I want you to send me your reconciliation of that same account for a particular month. When you get those, the 2 things you need to check, all right? One is, does the balance on the reconciliation that they gave you equal the balance on your bank statement? That's simple. And they'll be very clear on the reconciliation. Here's the ending balance in the books. Here's the ending balance on the bank statement. That's one thing. The second is look for anything that is an unreconciled item. If there are any unreconciled items, and quite frankly, in most cases, in most businesses, there won't be. I could get a little more detailed about that, but quite honestly, in 90% of the cases, there should never be an unreconciled item. And those will show up very clearly on the bank reconciliation, and they'll be called unreconciled or uncleared or open transactions. If there are some there, and if your bookkeeper can't clearly explain them to you, then you've got something you should have looked at by an outside party. Okay. And when I say clearly explain it to you, I mean explain it to you in a way that you understand it and are comfortable with it. So that's thing number 1. Make sure that your bookkeeper is reconciling your bank and credit card accounts every single month and that you occasionally, and I would do this no less than 2 to 3 times per year for every account, that you are actually going in and making sure those reconciliations are being done. You as the business owner, you as the person who owns that cash. That is the ultimate control you can have in your business, is to look at it after the fact. Well, it's not the ultimate control. The ultimate control is preventative. But the ultimate control you can have in a small business where you can't afford all these crazy preventative controls is to make sure that you're looking at it somewhat frequently, so that if somebody is running away with your cash, you know it sooner rather than later. Okay, that turned into a lecture and I'm sorry, but it's really important that you step up into that if you're a business owner. Second thing, the second thing you can do is to know your profits for real. Okay. A lot of times we as business owners are walking around going, hey, we're pretty profitable here. And we don't necessarily know that we are. And I'll tell you why. Expenses creep up on you over time. This is something that is so, so important on a regular basis, to make sure you go through and look at what you're actually being charged for. So look at those reports that you're getting from your bookkeeper, look at your expenses, have them give you a little something about those expenses in detail, maybe by vendor, every quarter, because you will be surprised how many subscriptions, how many software and hosted services, how many online magazines, how many things that people are doing just because they've always been done are piling up on your profit and loss statement. And you may not even realize they're still there. So you're thinking you're profitable when you're not, because of these old sort of legacy expenses that just keep piling up. I know, I will tell you, I do this in my business every quarter, and I find no less than at least $1,000 to $2,000 a month that shouldn't be there anymore. We just don't need whatever it is anymore. We've bought a new version of the software, or we've moved on from that particular tactic and we're not even using something anymore. So make sure that you really are as profitable as you think you are. The second thing I do around that, what I do with that, or the way I do that, is to go in and check and make sure there aren't expenses happening in there that you don't even know are there anymore. Okay. What is the third thing you can do? The third thing is to get a real list of what's moving cash that's not showing on your profit and loss statement. Now, that's a really weird statement, right? Like, if I'm profitable, I should have cash. Well, the reality of it is that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of technicalities around this, but for most of you, your bookkeepers are probably keeping your books on what's called an accrual basis, because it's sort of what QuickBooks defaults to. And if that's the case, you will see invoices show up as revenue before you've actually collected the cash. And you will see bills to people that you're paying show up as expenses before you've actually paid them. And last but not least, but the biggest one if you sell stuff, is you will see inventory that that doesn't look like it's been paid for yet, because you haven't sold something yet, that's not going to even show up in your radar if all you're doing is looking at your profit and loss statement, but that you've already paid for. Okay. And these are the three things that will actually make the big difference for you. Make sure that you know how much your customers still owe you in cash. Make sure that you know how quickly you're paying your bills, and make sure you know how much in advance you have to pay for your inventory. Those three things are going to always affect and usually decrease your cash flow from what you're seeing on your profit and loss statement, right? So that was kind of a convoluted way to say it, but let me give you an example. Say that I'm a business and I invoice somebody $2,000 for something, but they don't have to pay me for 30 days. If I look at my profit and loss statement, I'm going to see that sale. I sold $1,000 and say I had no expenses. I'd be sitting here thinking, hey, there should be 1,000 in my bank. But guess what? Because I've told them they don't have to pay that bill for 30 days, there's a 30-day gap. That money's not going to be in my bank account. It's truly that simple. So not only might you have terms where your customers can pay you later, but you might actually have customers that aren't paying you. And that will linger and end up costing you a lot of money and affecting your cash account. So there's a real world example of things that don't even show up on your profit and loss statement that are affecting your bank account. So let me go back through the three things to do. One is know that your bank and your credit card accounts are being reconciled monthly. Number two, know exactly what your profit is for real and if there are any expenses piling up there that you might not know about. And number three, make sure that you understand the things like how quickly you pay your bills. Don't pay anything early. Two, how quickly your clients are paying you. Make sure that nobody's taking longer than they should. And three, make sure you know how much cash you have to put out for inventory ahead of time before you can actually sell it. Those are the big three. This is Pam coming to you from FinCon live, and I hope you have a great week. I hope that video was helpful, and I hope you subscribe to my channel for more information on finances in your business.